Greetings and welcome to episode 2 of Ending the Sexual Dark Age. I'm JV Altheras, and for those joining me for the first time, this show is a lighthearted yet serious podcast dedicated to the unvarnished truth about sex in the modern world. If you like what you hear, I suggest you give a listen to episode 1, which is a much more complete introduction to what I'm doing here. We're educated from an early age about everything we'll need to know as an adult, except for the gaping hole in that education regarding sex. Every generation is left to fend for themselves, and everything we are taught about sex revolves around shame. At this point, we've launched a space station, learned to control nuclear fission, and gone from the phonograph to the iPod in about 100 years, but we still have 70% of women faking orgasms. In what I do not believe is a coincidence, that's about the same percentage of women who can't come from penetration. This show aims to put a dent in that obscene statistic. Despite what most of us are led to believe, the female orgasm is not a mystery. That's one of the many things you probably never learned about sex because you grew up in a world too ashamed and afraid of it to discuss it honestly or openly. This show will guide you, a step at a time, to the healthy attitude towards sex that your parents should have given you. From practical techniques to sexual philosophy, you'll learn how to have better sex and more of it in a friendly atmosphere that doesn't demean, discriminate, or coddle. The sexual dark age has been upon us for centuries, and despite the glut of sexual imagery we're bombarded with, our attitudes towards sex are just as self-destructive and backwards as they were 300 years ago. I'm still waiting to see the sexual revolution, and this show is my attempt to nudge things in that direction by beating back the darkness with plain, honest talk about how we got here in the first place, and how to reverse a lifetime of unhealthy sexual attitudes inflicted on us by a culture too ashamed to have open dialogue about something we're all biologically programmed to crave. One of the biggest problems with any lack of good information is that we fill in the gaps with assumptions, guesses, and bullshit. We're the Earth's most advanced animals, but make no mistake, we are indeed animals. We have instinctive behaviors ground into us by countless generations of evolution. In many cases, we're taught to ignore those instinctive behaviors in favor of what we generously call civilization. We teach people not to beat each other over the heads with clubs to settle every dispute, for example. We only sanction beatings when they're televised for everyone's entertainment. What a long way we've come from the barbaric ways of ancient cultures like the Romans. Oh wait, they had the Circus Maximus, which was, like a stadium. Well, the Greeks anyway. No, hang on, the Greeks started the Olympics. Whether they entertain you or not, overall, the Olympics are probably the most civilized incarnation of sports we currently have. At least we've come a long way socially. The Greeks and Romans didn't teach homophobia to one generation after another. When cultural progress halts or goes in reverse, we call that a dark age. This show is directed at men and women of all cultural and sexual persuasions. As to me, I'm a guy in his mid-30s who's managed to work my way through every one of my significant sexual fantasies without fame, fortune, or lying women out of their clothes. My lifelong shameless quest to master the female orgasm has taught me things I won't even talk about yet because I haven't built up enough credibility for anyone to believe me. Instead of continuing our back-asswards cultural tradition of taking sexual knowledge to the grave, I'm doing exactly the opposite. I'm probably going to spend a lot of time talking about confidence. Confidence will improve your sex life, and the rest of your life for that matter, and better sex will do a lot to improve your confidence. It's important to note that I'm not talking about self-esteem. Self-esteem is an advertising slogan for a bullshit pseudoscience. Actually, if you have Showtime, Penn and Teller featured self-esteem on a great episode of Bullshit a couple of weeks ago. The entire modern concept of self-esteem, and giving everyone a trophy, and telling everyone that they're a winner no matter what, is based on a corrupted study that never should have been published. I'll never tell you to look in the mirror and tell yourself that you're special, or that no matter what, you're a winner. When I get around to giving homework assignments, I promise there'll be a hell of a lot more fun than that. Self-esteem is a product invented to be sold to people who are insecure. Self-confidence is a result of success. Self-esteem is sold to insecure people to help them feel better about losing. And I'm not talking about arrogance, which can pass for confidence after a few drinks. Like I said, self-confidence is one of the many rewards of success. Cock size and rack size have a big impact on the self-confidence of a lot of people, even though either is only a marginal factor in overall attraction and sexual satisfaction. Maybe it's just the fact that it's easier to obsess over the things we can easily measure. In honor of my promise to always give it to you straight, here it is. And I'm probably about to piss off some of the so-called sex experts. Yes, most women like big dicks. Yes, most men like big tits. But, and this is a big but, everyone spends way more time worrying about it than they should. Interestingly, men are more preoccupied with cock size than women are, and women are more focused on breast size than men are. A lot of that falls back into the lack of open sexual dialogue in the modern world. Sure, size matters. I'd be insulting you if I tried to tell you anything different. It might surprise you to find out that it doesn't matter nearly as much as you might think it does, and that's really the focus of this episode. Whatever your preoccupation with size, your insecurities are probably unjustified. A lot of the expert self-help resources like to say, cock size doesn't matter. That's bullshit, and guys instinctively know it is. Hearing bullshit platitudes does nothing for anyone, and it's this kind of hollow, self-esteem building shit that does more harm than good. Note that a lot of these resources tend to focus on telling men what they're doing wrong, and that if they want better sex, they need to change themselves into something their women will want more. Or they basically say the same thing to women. Neither is particularly productive. Sex is a team sport, and the whole team has to be playing to win. The straight story on size is that yes, cock size matters to women, but not nearly as much as guys think it does. Women are far more concerned with the whole package of sexual satisfaction, and when they talk about dicks in private, they're not quoting measurements to their friends. The reality is that short of whipping out a ruler, most couldn't tell you the difference between a 5.5 and 6-inch cock by looking at it or even playing with it. Guys also tend to focus more on length when it's girth that women actually notice more. Most of the nerve ends in the pussy are near the entrance, so a fatter cock will do more to stimulate them than a longer one. Like a lot of things about human anatomy, there's a wide range of male equipment out there. Any woman who's seen her fair share of hard-ons will tell you that balls come in all different sizes too. Cock size and ball size aren't particularly related. The size of the bulge has little to do with the size of the sword. It could be all balls down there, so don't get intimidated by what looks like a large package. That guy just might be all hat and no cattle. And fellas, the saddest thing about all this is that we do it to ourselves. We've taken the importance of cock size to nearly mythical proportions, as if the size of a man's dick is a direct reflection of how much of a man he is. The average straight guy is going to see other guys' dicks in two places, the locker room and porn. One source is totally useless, and the other is totally counterproductive and unrealistic. Studies have proven repeatedly that the size of a limp dick has nothing to do with how big it is when it's hard. Some guys grow a lot when they get hard, and for some, the noodle just stands up straight without getting much bigger. That means if your opinion of your own size is based on what you've seen in locker rooms, you've been working on bad information. As far as porn, it would be hard to find a worse example when it comes to cock size. Big dicks look good on camera, and porn actors are almost invariably among the 5% of guys with dicks longer than 7 inches. That's right, about 5%. About 1 guy in 20 has a dick big enough for porn. You also don't see your own dick from the same angle as you see him in porn. Looking down on something always makes it look smaller than it does from the side, for example, and since a hard-on stands at an angle, that makes it look even shorter from above. You should also know this. Porn makes just about every guy feel like his dick should be bigger, even if it's already in the genuinely big range. Regarding both porn and the locker room, overall body size also has a big impact on relative appearance. A 6-inch dick looks a lot bigger on a guy who's 5'6", 140 than it does on someone 6'2", 200, but it's still the same 6 inches of dick. In porn, a guy 5'4" with an 8-inch dick looks like he's waving around a fucking battering ram on camera. Most guys who are concerned about their equipment are really only worried about whether or not they're satisfying their lovers. They don't necessarily want to know if they're big, but they want to know if they're big enough. This brings me to the show's first bit of deadly important advice for the guys. If you're obsessed with the size of your own dick, it can actually create enough stress to break up relationships regardless of how big you are. Don't ever ask a woman if your dick is big or if she's had bigger or anything related to the size of your cock. You're probably just going to get lied to because women are taught that it's their job to nurture the legendarily fragile male ego. It's a pointless conversation. Every time she's pulled a guy's zipper down, she's had a 5% chance to find a tree trunk. Either she tells you the truth and you feel like your cock is small, or you get lied to. At the same time, you're making yourself the stereotypical fragile guy who needs his ego stroked more than his cock. If your woman's up for stroking something, it should not be your ego. You're putting up a billboard that you're needy and lack confidence, and that one question can change the whole dynamic of a relationship. Don't ever ask. Your dick is however big it is. The fact that you can take a ruler to it doesn't make it any more important than the dozens or hundreds of other factors that play into attraction and sexual satisfaction. Girls, you play a part in this too. Stop lying, no matter what mommy told you about how fragile men are. The guys who are actually fragile need to get the fuck over it, so you need to stop enabling them. If you want to help end the sexual dark age, the next time a guy asks you if he has a big dick, just tell him that nothing good ever comes from that conversation and that you refuse to participate. Even if he whines like a little girl, you hold your ground. Your sex life will improve if your man learns to focus on something he can change, like how well he licks pussy. If you won't leave it alone, tell him you refuse to talk to him about it until he listens to this episode. If he still won't leave it alone, start shopping for new sausage, because that guy is way too high maintenance. And if he asks again after listening to this, he's just asking for it. Men are always happy to hear unsolicited compliments, but don't tell a guy with an average dick that he's huge. He knows he isn't, and you're just inviting the pointless, destructive conversation I've been running off at the mouth about. Coming up in a moment are the hard numbers from a study done by the manufacturer of Lifestyle's condoms in 2005. I particularly like this source because they have a clean motivation: profit. They make condoms, and the distribution of cock size in the population directly impacts their revenue and product line. Skewing the results would be counterproductive for them. Regardless, all the scientifically credible studies from the last 50 years have come up with pretty much identical results. Because some of you may be tempted to pull out a ruler, I'll say that the method of measurement used in the most credible studies is referred to as the bone press method. With a full hard-on, a ruler is placed on the top side of the cock and pressed back against the pelvic bone. Look down to see how you measure up. Girth is measured by wrapping a string around the shaft and marking it, then holding it up to a ruler to measure it. For scientific purposes, 3 measurements are taken, 1 each at the base, center, and just below the head, and then averaged. Before you run to Google for one of the many online surveys with results posted, you should also know that self-reporting studies, which are most of what you'll find out on the internet, uniformly report larger results than the studies in which medical personnel did the measuring. I think we can all guess why if we try really hard. Captain Obvious says, when you ask guys how big their dicks are, they exaggerate. So with no further ado, here are the numbers. About half of guys are between 5.5 and 6 inches long. That's truly the average range. About 20% are between 5 and 5.5 inches, meaning a whopping 70% of dicks are between 5 and 6 inches long. And the range of 5 to 7 inches covers around 90% of guys. As far as girth, 75% of men are between 4.5 and 5.5 inches around, with dead average at about 5 inches. Also, good news for the Asians: cock size has no relationship to ethnic background. In related news, bad news for the black guys: cock size has no relationship to ethnic background, or to the size of feet, hands, or anything else, so you girls are going to have to keep on resorting to the time-tested method of copping a feel. Now you know how big the average cock is and how big yours is in comparison, so if you're one of those guys that's self-conscious about your cock, you can stop wondering about it. The more important thing to take away from this is that having a big cock does not make you a cocksmith. It certainly helps, but it's just a few grains of sand on the scale, along with a lot of other things that are quite frankly a hell of a lot more important. Having a big dick doesn't make you a good lover, and for some guys it can actually hurt them in the long run in the form of overconfidence. On a related note, I've found that beautiful women who know how hot they are tend to be average or below average in bed. I think guys compete for them and fall all over themselves all the time to try and get in their panties, and they know it, and on some level, they think they're doing you a favor by spreading their legs in the first place. These are a lot of the same women who don't give head, but we'll get to them in another episode, because, well, it's going to be a time-consuming topic. Anyway, the same kind of backwards thinking can infect guys with big dicks. The size of your cock has nothing to do with how hard you need to work on the art of being a good lover. A big dick is a stroke of luck, if you'll pardon the pun. But in order to be a great lover, you need to work just as hard as anyone else in the skill department. For example, I've heard a lot of women complain about well-hung guys who either don't lick pussy or aren't any good at it. Women tend to spend the same amount of time obsessing about the size of their tits as men do obsessing about their cocks. Girls, at the end of the day, if your tits look about right for your body, you have nothing to worry about. Here's an interesting bit of information you ladies might not already know. Most men have no actual comprehension of bra sizes and what they mean. The general idea is easy. Bigger numbers and letters mean bigger tits. When we buy you lingerie for the first time, we rifle your panty drawer looking at tags, just like we do to your closets when we're buying you other kinds of clothes. Frankly, your clothing sizes are fucked up and confusing. Dress sizes from 0 up that mean different things if you put junior or women's in front of them, number and letter combinations for bras. Unless a guy has some vested interest in women's clothing, like business, or wearing it himself, he's not going to bother. So unless your guy has bought you lingerie, he probably doesn't have a fucking clue what your cup size even is. We pay attention to how they feel, how they taste, how sensitive they are, how pretty they look, but we don't tend to obsess over exactly what size they are, just like you don't lie awake at night wondering if your man is 5.5 or 6 inches. Depending on their particular survey, 50 to 70% of men are completely happy with the rack they have to play with. Those numbers sound about right to me. We don't sit around talking about wanting our women to get boob jobs. A really nice rack is a bonus, and it can certainly help a woman stand out from the crowd. And we do love playing with a really nice set of tits. But at the end of the day, just like cock size, it's one factor in a complicated equation of attraction. Very few guys are so fixated on tits that size will be any kind of deciding factor in whether or not they want you. Well, I do need to qualify that. Nice tits can flip a switch to make guys want to play with them. We can't help it. Evolution has wired us that way. More than that, we're hardwired to look at them. The men you don't catch looking at tits in public have just gotten really good at it. Mirrored sunglasses rock. Even if you're a B cup and your man is staring down every set of Ds you walk past, it still doesn't mean that he's unhappy with the size of your rack. We're hardwired to ogle tits. We couldn't help it even if we wanted to. And we don't want to. There's no shame in appreciating good scenery, and that street goes both ways. You girls spend just as much time checking out men in public, and you know it, you're just better at it and you don't get caught as often. That brings me to the general point of who gives a fuck if your lover is enjoying the scenery. Jealousy is a pointless emotion that produces nothing but doubt and misery. It's born out of a deep-seated fear that your lover will trade you in for what they perceive to be an upgrade. That will be a show in itself farther on down the line, but I thought it was fitting to touch on it here. We all window shop, men and women alike. Noticing attractive people around us is an instinctive behavior, and you might as well get pissed at water for being wet. That said, it's only polite for guys to be casual and sneaky about it, just like most women are when they're admiring the view. As far as women making their breasts bigger or perkier, exercise can help. There's a fine line between muscular and masculine for a woman, but chest and arm exercises will tend to tighten your upper body and give your breasts a bit of a lift. And some muscle under your rack will push it out a little. Some women see pictures of female bodybuilders whose tits have basically been replaced by masculine-looking pecs and get afraid that working out will flatten their chests, but those are extreme cases. Body fat has to go down to a level that's considered unhealthy by a lot of doctors, and it generally takes a ridiculous amount of weightlifting to build that kind of muscle. That look will not sneak up on you. Of course, plastic surgeons have many methods of rack enhancement. Plastic surgery is one of those related topics I have to get into in the interest of the whole story. I personally hate the term fake tits. They're not fake. They're all warm and firm, and I can play with them and squeeze them, and when they're done right, they're more sensitive than natural tits. Enhanced, enlarged, improved, inflated, I can work with all of those, but not fake. Boob jobs are readily available, though there are a lot of finer points to consider before actually getting one. The first is the question of why. If you've convinced yourself that bigger tits will fix a broken sexual relationship, don't do it. Sure, they'll get more attention, but if there's an underlying sexual chemistry problem, bigger tits won't help. The extra attention you'll be getting from the rest of the male population will just make your man look worse by comparison. Plastic surgery will never fix a broken relationship. Now, guys who haven't had playtime with a large variety of women might not know that a notable percentage of women have breasts that are slightly different sizes. This leads to problems finding clothes that look right on them, especially bathing suits, and long-term it has a tendency to create self-confidence issues. A good surgeon will even them out while he's working on them. Also, some guys just don't like the feel of tits that have had a tune-up. Women who go 3 cup sizes bigger than end up sporting anti-grab titties might not realize that they're hurting themselves with a lot of guys, but also, those guys probably aren't the ones they're going for anyway. Big tits are great and all, but the larger the upgrade, the less natural they're going to look and feel when they're done. 1 cup size can usually be done pretty flawlessly. 2 can be done easily by a good surgeon, but more than 2 and there just isn't enough tissue there in the first place to leave things looking natural. There's also a sensitivity danger with a big size jump. The nipples are at the end of a nerve cluster that stretches generally back towards the shoulder. Implants can stretch out those nerves, making the nipples and the flesh around them much more sensitive. This can be a nice bonus. If the size jump is too much though, those nerves can be stretched too tight and get damaged, which causes a severe loss of sensitivity. Any truly competent plastic surgeon would have these conversations with you in a consultation, but be warned, any boob job costing less than about 8 or 10 grand is one that you don't want. I've seen a lot of fantastic work, but I've also seen some sloppy, terrible rack work. Scars, tits that don't hang evenly or look symmetrical, and other various issues. If you're trying to save money in this world, the last place to do it is on work you're having done on your body. The same goes for tattoos actually, although tats tend to be quite a bit less expensive. I wanted to cover all that ground, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about boob jobs because most women simply don't need them. Remember, even though only about 30% of women are happy with their tits, 70% of their men are. Those are close to the same numbers we see with cock size. Most men aren't happy, but most women are. The clue here is for everyone to chill the fuck out and stop worrying about it. A man doesn't need a big dick to be a master cocksmith, and a woman doesn't need big tits to be smoking hot. Sure, having either tends to make it easier, but stressing over size is pointless. Concern yourself with all the other things you can do to improve your relationship with sex and be the best fuck your playmate has ever had. Step by step, that's where this show is leading you. Think about this, guys. About 3/4 of women can't climax from penetration alone. That means 75% of women are going to be far more interested in what you can do for their clits than what you've got hanging. That's a harsh truth that I'll be getting into a little bit more next time. With men so focused on cock size, penis pills are a booming industry. Unfortunately, guys who are self-conscious enough about their size to fall for them make nearly perfect victims. Even if the product is complete bullshit, which they all are, there's no reasonable recourse. No guy is going to stand up on the news or in open court saying, "I took this product for a year and my dick's still only 4 inches long. Check it out." Guys wouldn't even say shit like that to their closest friend or tell anyone they were taking the stuff in the first place. Enzyte is obviously doing well enough at least to be buying ad space every 5 fucking minutes on every channel in the world. That's still not proof that it does anything at all, mind you, because unsatisfied customers are too embarrassed to say anything to anyone. It's a license to sell snake oil. Even if any of the penis pills did work, would you really want the size of your cock? And ladies, this includes any cocks you might lay claim to. Would you want the size of it to be dependent on buying pills forever? Even the snake oil salesman claimed that any benefits will disappear if you stop taking the product. Guys, imagine you start taking some penis pill, then you find the girl of your dreams. Even if you only gained a 1/4 inch, you're going to hang on to that fucking 1/4 inch for dear life because you're going to be afraid that stopping will make her stop wanting your cock because it's going to get smaller. You're going to buy those pills for fucking ever. In reality, she probably wouldn't notice a 1/4 inch even if she was paying attention. The effective size of your cock already varies by level of arousal and things like having alcohol in your system, and you probably already have a situational length range of plus or minus about a 1/4 inch, whether you realize it or not. So if you're considering penis pills, send me the money instead. I'll use that money, I promise you, I will use that money to buy beer and drink to your kindness, and that has about as much of a chance of making your dick bigger as Enzyte does. Penis pumps are another non-invasive product that often claims to make your dick bigger. At least the pumps are telling a half-truth. They have an effect, but it's temporary and not without risk. If you've never seen one, just Google it and you'll come up with a picture instantly. You may come up with a picture you don't want to see, but you'll come up with a picture. Penis pumps are long plastic or glass tubes that allow you to draw a vacuum on skin. The same or similar toys can be used on any part of the body to essentially pull blood flow to that area, engorging the skin and making it highly sensitive. In BDSM play, this practice is called cupping. If you put a penis pump over your cock and pump all the air out, more blood than normally possible will get pulled into your schlong by the vacuum. You then put on what they call a ring, which is basically a rubber band around the base of the shaft to keep the blood from flowing back into your body once you take the pump off. Penis pumps can help guys with impotence issues get their soldier to sanded attention, so they do have a legitimate use that's even, in some cases, a medical use. They can also make your cock a little bigger temporarily. But if you leave the band on for more than 15 or 20 minutes, you're risking injury, and any cock-related injury is a serious injury. Even with recommended use, you can get blisters, bruises, and discolored skin. Eventually, like you would tying off any part of your body, you'll have long-term tissue damage. I've never used one because I can't imagine the experience of basically turning your dick into an overfilled blood balloon would be particularly pleasant, but I don't judge. If you want to give your girl the feel of a bigger dick once in a while, have at it, but you don't want to be doing it constantly. Regardless of advertising the contrary, the next time you get it hard, it will be the same size as it was before you owned the pump. There are also weights and supposed exercises, but the cock isn't a muscle and it won't grow from stressing. The so-called exercises are generally just pulling on it like you can actually stretch it out or something. All in all, none of it has been scientifically proven to do shit. The only option with any kind of proven long-term results is surgical, but that's a bullshit option too. I won't go into all the details, but it's very expensive, doesn't even guarantee results, gives less than an inch when it works, and might fucking backfire and leave you shorter. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. If that sounds ridiculous, it means you were paying attention. Loads of money, painful surgery, and then, as a bonus, you get to attach weights to your balls for about an hour a day for 6 months so the ligaments cut during the surgery don't reconnect. The best way to make your dick both effectively and apparently bigger is to lose some weight. The more overweight you are, the more you have the base of the shaft buried in fat. Losing weight might not seem like a sexy or fun option, but it's pretty much guaranteed to help. For that matter, trimming back the bush, another future topic, helps make it look bigger too. To anyone who feels their factory equipment is undersized, I'd like to remind you that there is green grass on both sides of the fence. There are downsides to having a big dick. For one thing, and this is no joke, it's harder to hide it when you get a hard-on in public. It's also harder to get good head. Most women have no chance of deep-throating a 9-inch cock, and a lot of girth basically guarantees teeth dragging. You also have to be more careful during sex, especially in deep penetration positions like doggy style. Women are all built a little differently too, and if you've never bottomed out and bounced your cock off a woman's cervix because you were going a little too wild, you are not missing a fucking thing. Guys with really big dicks are hit a lot harder by drunk dick, and for those not familiar with that term, that's when drinking too much thins out your blood and relaxes your muscles, either keeping you from getting hard or leaving things a little softer than normal. And there is also such a thing as too big for most women. Not too big to physically fit, but definitely too big to be comfortable. There are also downsides to having big tits. A lot of large-breasted women feel like guys actually can't even see their faces. Big tits also feel the effects of gravity sooner and more significantly than smaller tits. Also, too much is too much. I'm personally not a big fan of anything larger than a D cup. I like proportional, and so do most other guys. Not that we would chase a girl away for having huge tits, but they're just not as singularly attractive as a lot of women think they are. I wouldn't be doing justice to the topic of size if I didn't talk a little bit about pussy size. This is another topic on which some of the sex expert apologists like to gloss over the truth, usually as it relates to cock size. The party line is that
the vagina is able to change in size to accommodate any size penis, so size doesn't really matter to women.
Sure, everything else about the human body comes in different sizes and proportions, from feet to cocks to tits to noses to ears. But the pussy is made of sunshine and rainbows, and it doesn't follow the same rules. Pussies come in different sizes just like everything else. And just like cocks, there's little to no correlation between the size of the pussy and the size of the rest of the body. I've had tall women who were so tight I could barely get in there, and petite girls who were like fucking a glass of warm water. Actually, I had that experience a few weeks after hearing that term for the first time, and I could not get it out of my head. All I could think was glass of warm water. It took forever to come, and everything I had to keep from giggling. I obviously didn't go back there for more. Sure, the pussy can change in size to accommodate things up to the size of a fucking baby. That doesn't mean they're all infinitely adjustable or equally elastic. Some women need an incision to give birth, and some don't. With the exception of size queens, most women who've shopped around for a decent lover have had at least one guy they thought was too big. The pussy can stretch to accept a baby, but that's not exactly a day at the fucking carnival. And there's a point of uncomfortable that comes before the natural max size of a flesh and blood cock for most women. While we're on the topic, if a woman's particularly nervous, all her muscles will naturally tense up, including her Kegel muscles, making her pussy tighter. Pussies are wonderfully unique in so many ways, and one of them is that simple exercises can tighten them up, and a woman's ability to flex a strong set of Kegel muscles during sex does exactly what it sounds like, clamps down on the cock and makes things better for both of you. That's flexing muscles. It's not something she's going to do constantly or do all the time, but it's, one more move for you girls to put in your arsenals. When it's getting hot and it's feeling really good, clamp down on that thing and hang on for fucking glory. If you're curious to go out and get some more info, Kegel is spelled Kegel, and Wikipedia has a particularly good page on Kegel muscles and exercises. Guys have them too. I exercise mine every day, and I'll be talking more about them when I'm covering male stamina later on down the line. Anyone serious about good sex should be doing Kegel exercises. And that just about wraps it up for this episode. I'd like to thank you all for joining me. I've gotten some great listener feedback so far, and I'm always thrilled to hear from any of you. There is no topic related to sex or sexuality that I'm unwilling to tackle, so hit me with your freakiest shot. Feel free to send any questions, comments, requests, tirades, or insults to jvaltharas@gmail.com. That's jvaltharas@gmail.com. Or step by sexualdarkage.com and leave a comment on any of the episodes. I'll warn you that the website is dreadfully generic at the moment, and hopefully I'll have some time to get a real design together for that sometime soon, but it's still a solid way to shout back at me. If you like the show, I'd truly appreciate if you'd help me get it out to more people by going to iTunes and giving it a good rating and or leaving a review. I've got some pretty cool stuff in the works for you guys in the near future, starting with the next episode, Meet the Female Orgasm. Until then, this be me, JV Altharas, reminding you that amazing sex is just a choice that you get to make when you're willing to put in the work.